So I've just bought a whole pile of new fountain pen inks. This bag. I buy a lot of ink samples. I did also buy a bottle of ink because I really like this colour. And I thought while I was showing you the swatching of the new inks, I'd just talk to you a bit about fountain pens. I'm Ruby from the Useful Journal. I review dot grid journals, but I also talk to you just about journaling techniques and sometimes about the things I use to do my journaling. So I started out using fountain pens about a couple of years into my journaling kind of really focused journaling period, which was about 6 years ago. So a couple of years in, I started using fountain pens. I was just curious. I'd seen a lot of videos about them. And my first pen was this Pilot Prera, which is fairly widely available in Australia. It's been available here a lot longer than it has in, say, America. I think it's only been in America for a couple of years. It's a great starter pen. It's probably mid-price. It's not as cheap as, say, a Pilot Metropolitan, but there's a lot of things I love about it. It's suitable for a small hand, unposted, and then a larger hand, it's if you post it. I'll show you compared to, say, a Pelikan, the TWSBI Eco. So you can see it is on the smaller side, but once it's posted, it is quite handy. Like, let's post the Pelikan. I've got reasonably large hands for a girl. I don't find it too small. I got it with a medium nib. It also has cartridges, but I have always used it with, apart from the free cartridge I got with it, with a converter. And the reason I use it with a converter is because I am addicted to different ink colours. I liked the Pilot Prera so much that over the last couple of years I have actually bought 2 more and absolutely adore them. After that, I thought, oh, I have to get a Lamy because they are very popular. Again, with a converter. All my pens I got with converters because, like I said, I like to try lots of different inks. This was quite a wet writer. It is a medium nib, but definitely bolder in terms of pen stroke compared to, say, the Pilot Prera. And I read online that that might be the difference between the Japanese pens and the European pens. The medium in Japan and countries like that is more similar to the fine in Europe. So let's just have a quick look at what I've got here. I've got 3 Pilot Preras. I have a Pilot Metropolitan, and this is a medium nib. These are all medium nibs, by the way. I'm not a huge lover of fine nibs, but I do have a few just for certain uses, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Good quality, cheaper pen, really easy to use, really reliable. The only thing I don't love about the Pilot Metropolitan is the cartridge. It sucks it up. You squeeze it and then it sucks up ink. I just never seem to get that much ink into it. Look, I am not an expert here. There are many people on YouTube that are really good at fountain pens and can give you all sorts of advice. I'm just going to talk about my experience, so I probably should stay away from giving advice because I really am just muddling my way through and doing what feels right to me. So, Pilot Metropolitan, and then I've got my 2 Lamys, and then this one is a fine, and I have fines for a reason, which I'll talk about. I have this really pretty pen, which I got reasonably early on, and I love. I didn't love it at first because it is a fine medium nib, and it is definitely on the fine side, but it has been very handy for use in some journals. This would have to be my favourite pen. It's a Pelikan Souverain 600, and it is a fine nib, but I tell you what, this might be a fine nib, but it writes broad. This one's one of my newer ones. It was on special and I just kind of like the look of it. It's really slimline. It's still got a cartridge in it because, like I said, I haven't had it very long, but I do own a converter to put in it later. However, I am interested in the idea of refilling cartridges, and that's why I've bought this syringe. It's a special fountain pen syringe. The nozzle here fits into the tip of the cartridge so you can refill ink into a cartridge. I do prefer the ones that push and click. I love the Pilot Prera because it's got a soft close. It's still a push and click, and you can hear that click, but it's got this kind of soft close. Imagine a soft close drawer. Push and click again, push and click. This one is a screw, and I don't love screws. This is also a screw. The reason I don't love screws is that I'm so used to push and click, I think, that I'm always going to pull it out, and yeah, not so good. This is a TWSBI Eco. Again, a very broad writer. This is a medium nib, but it is one of my wettest pens. And then this is my special. I do have another nib kit for this one, but this is a stub nib, and I adore this. So here's an example where I've written with this stub nib, and I just love it. It's just such a beautiful outcome and a great way to see more shading in your shading inks, which is nice too. That's the Pelikan fine nib, and then this is the Pilot Prera medium, and so you can see that the Prera medium is actually finer than the Pelikan fine. So there is definitely variation brand to brand. So this is my TWSBI Diamond 580 ALR with the stub nib. As I said, you really got to be careful cleaning these out because they do get stuck, and you have to then pull it all apart and re-grease the I don't even know what that's called, that bit. And finally, this was a real novelty buy, and I'd always been kind of curious about these resin and wood pens. And look, this particular one just really, I loved the colour combination of the grey with the pale brown wood. So this bit's the wood, obviously, and this bit's the resin. It's from a guy in England. It's called Silverburl Pens, and he hand makes them all. Obviously, it's chunkamungus, right? It's a really chunky pen. I have big hands, as I said. Anyone with small hands, this would be way too big, and it can't really be posted. I don't want to damage the end anyway. But you don't need to post. It's such a big pen. So that's my fountain pens. That's all I've got. Not a huge collection. I don't have a fountain pen wallet. I do keep some when I'm not using them in a glasses case. Oh, I haven't thrown it out yet. There's the other Pilot Metropolitan that's all broken. I probably should be a lot more careful and put them in a proper case, but apart from this one and maybe this one, all my other pens are on not super expensive, and especially my daily writers, these two cost a bit more. This is definitely my most expensive pen. Now let's quickly go on to inks. I have many different versions of several different kinds of ink. So here's all my inks. As you can see, mostly samples and a few bottles, and I'll explain what the go is there. We're going to talk about 3 of my inks because they're different types. So this one is a standard ink. It's called Robert Oster Sublime. It's a lime colour, obviously. This is a shading ink, which means that you get variation in colour depending on how much ink you lay down. It does depend on the type of paper as well. If you use, this is a notebook with Tomoe River paper, you can see very clearly all the shading in the inks, but that won't always be the case. I do have notebooks where they don't shade much at all. This is called a sheening ink, and that means that you can, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the kind of metallic look around the edge of the ink? So it's still a shading ink, and in this Pilot Iroshizuku ink called Asagao, it has a blue, light blue, dark blue, and then a red coppery type sheen around the edge. And then you've got your shimmer inks. So when you see a shimmer ink, it looks like glitter. Like you can see all the swirls. It's very swirly in the bottle. Often if you don't shake them up, all the glitter will sit at the bottom and it won't go through the whole ink. This is a Robert Oster ink, Aussie Liquid Gold. Now when I write these cards, I use a glass dip pen to write the first bit, and you get more idea of how the shading or sheening or shimmer will look on your page. But then I do a fine version, which is with this Pilot Utsushi pen. It's a medium nib. It's also a dip pen. So you just dip right. Because it's so fine, you don't get the same colour variation showing up. I have done a whole video on how I do my sample cards, and I go through the choice of paper and everything. You can see the difference between those three types of ink. Shading, sheening just shows a bit of a shine around the edge, and then shimmer. This is the one that is going to block up your pens. I tend to only use shimmer inks with certain pens or with my dip pens because they just jam up. If you leave them in your pen too long, they will block the nib and other parts of the pen as well, and they're a bit of a pain to clean off. I don't have a lot of shimmer inks. I started off with my Pilot Iroshizuku set, and I also had 3 Ferris wheel press inks that came in a little set. There's still some of this one left. I have lots of empty containers, sample containers, and I don't know what to do with them. So if you are like me and like getting sample inks and have empty tubes, tell me what you do with them. I know some people use them to share ink with other people, but I don't know anyone else that writes with a fountain pen, and I don't have a lot of bottled inks, so I really don't have a lot to share. So I had those, and then I bought a whole bunch of inks. In Australia, I get them from an online shop called Pulp Addiction that has a huge range of fountain pen inks and samples. Here's another shimmer ink. It's got, see the gold on the bottom? But then the rest of it's purple. This is Barossa Gilt by Robert Oster. So you have to shake these before you use them so that the shimmer is dispersed through your ink. I don't have any fancy storage. I do keep all my inks in a dark cupboard away from sun and away from heat. I buy bottled inks when I really love a colour and decide I want more of a particular one. So this was my favourite blue by Pilot Iroshizuku inks. It's an Asagao. And then I got a whole bottle of this one, which I used up very quickly. It was one of my little samples. This is called Lady Rose, and it's from Ferris Wheel Press. I'll show you. It's this kind of light pinky brown colour, mushroom sort of colour. So that's that one. And then I got this one, which is Crocodile Green from Robert Oster, which is a green. It's not showing up correctly in this journal at the moment because this journal has very cream paper. It's coming out quite olive at the moment. It does come out a bit lighter than that on white paper. That's another thing to keep in mind. The colour of the paper does change the colour of the inks. Then I wanted a really good black ink that was waterproof, because I do like sketching with fountain pens and then painting over that with watercolors. So it's something I've been playing around with, and obviously if I'm going to be using watercolors with the ink, I need it to be waterproof, and the others are certainly not. They're all water-based and they all smear terribly if I get a drop of water on them. I bought this Platinum Carbon ink based on recommendations on the web, and I am very happy with it. And then finally, I think this is one of my favorite pen ink colors of all time so far. Of all time, I haven't been using it for that long. Let me get all the samples out for these, my favorite inks, which are these ones. So this is Writer's Blood, Diamine Writer's Blood, which is a very deep red. These are my sample cards, and they're all sorted according to colour. We've got Diamine Writer's Blood, we've got Robert Oster Crocodile Green, we've got Iroshizuku Asagao, and then we've got Lady Rose, which is this one. A bit of a range, like kind of red, blue, green, black, fairly standard sort of colours, and I got them because I really, really like writing with these particular inks. This one is great for when the journal has a lot of issues with ghosting, and so then I know it's a lighter colour, so it's not going to be a problem. This one I just love. It is a stunning ink. It's a sheening ink. You can see, well, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a slight green sheen around the edge of that. This is also a sheening ink, and I have not marked on the back of any of these where I've used them. That one I need to mark for the current journal. What I do is I note on the back where I've used it. I always buy sample inks. I started out with a full set of Pilot Iroshizuku samples of pretty much their full colour range at the time, and I just love being able to play with lots of different colours of ink. So you'll see in my journals I do switch around each month. I choose a colour that goes with the theme. Now in this one, I definitely went with a theme. This is my reading journal, and I am only using washi tapes and stickers from one particular artist, and that is Linus Potts, and I only use one ink, well, one colour of ink. I have switched up because I ran out of that particular colour. I use my fine lamy, and the reason I use my fine lamy is because this paper is only, I think it's 80 GSM, it might be 70. It's pretty lightweight, and a heavier fountain pen, like a broad nib, would probably show through the paper a lot more. Occasionally this one does. I used up a whole sample of one grey, and then I switched to a shimmer ink. One thing I've found with having a whole journal in one type of ink is you do tend to leave the ink in your pen for ages, and that's not such a good thing. The pens do benefit from being cleaned out occasionally, especially if you're using a shimmer ink. While we're talking about nibs, I'll just quickly mention about fine versus medium. I've found it really depends on the type of paper in my journal. So currently I'm using a 100 GSM paper, and this paper is actually, it's from Dingbats, and despite not really being keen on the cream colour of the paper, it is fantastic with fountain pens. It shows shading, it shows shimmer. It makes my fountain pen inks look really good. So I could use a broader nib in it, but I do tend to stick to just using my Pilot Prera pens when I'm writing in that particular notebook. As I said, in my reading journal, I stuck to a finer nib just because the paper was a bit on the thinner side. And then Don't dismiss out of hand using fountain pens in 160 GSM journals or like ones with heavy paper. This particular one is my Coco and Lynn journal. It has 150 GSM paper and it's actually recycled, and often people get a bit concerned about using fountain pens on recycled paper. Not all recycled paper is created equal. As you can see here, the fountain pens look great on this paper. There's no feathering. I could use broad and finer nibs. I think in this journal in particular, I often used my Pelikan pen. So yeah, don't always assume that fountain pens may not work in this type of paper. It's because journals with heavier weight paper don't tend to have coating on the paper, and that can cause feathering. And I'm not going to say that all 160 GSM journals are good with fountain pens, because they're not. Definitely not. You need to check reviews to see if they're going to be okay, and I do always check my notebooks when I'm reviewing them for how they coat with fountain pen inks. You can see in here I've tested a variety of inks in a few different pens. I've tested Metropolitan, a Prera, a Lamy Safari, and then this is a Pilot Prera as well. So I do check how they work, so it's worth checking those out. The biggest surprise for me was Nuna. So Nuna is definitely an uncoated paper. It's lighter weight. What was interesting about the Nuna was I started out very confidently. So you can see there's a bit of ghosting there. I started out very confidently writing in a broader nib pen and really didn't like the look of it. It was quite crowded and definitely a little bit of feathering going on. So for this entire journal, because of those issues with pens, I did keep using fountain pens, but I used my Sailor fine medium nib pen, and that was fine. So often when you are having issues with fountain pen ink in your journal, it's worth trying a different pen, different nib, even perhaps a different ink, because some inks are obviously wetter than others. I didn't think that I was going to be able to use fountain pens in this journal, and I did end up using them all the way through. So that is my world of fountain pens. I hope you found that interesting. Do check out my other video on how I went about deciding how to swatch my fountain pen inks, and I hope you found this interesting. I'll see you again soon.